All right, so I want to move to the USA Today coaches poll, which took a beating yesterday when the Pac-12 and the Big Ten decided that they were going to postpone their football seasons, canceling fall football, moving it to the spring, we think. But what that means for the only poll that we respect that's out, because the Associated Press poll is not, and the college football playoff poll is a dream right now, that means that these teams that are ranked or receive votes are no longer in it. So let me just run through these. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 7, Penn State. Number 9, Oregon. Number 12, Wisconsin. Number 15, Michigan. Number 18, Minnesota. Number 17, USC. Number 20, Utah. And number 23, Iowa. Then Boise State, Arizona State, Washington, Air Force, Wazoo, Cal, Nebraska, and Stanford all received votes. That decimates the top 25 rankings. So, with that said, I wanted to say, hey, let's talk about re-ranking them, because we could easily do that thing where, you just move people up into spots and you call it good, which, I'm sure somebody's gonna do, but it's more fun to argue over these things. So I'm going to invite you to discuss it with me. Now that we know that there's no Ohio State, who's the number 2 team in the country?
Okay, this is tough because I keep going back and forth on this. I would tell you right now, behind Clemson, it would be Alabama, because I love what they have offensively. I don't know how sold I am on Mac Jones yet, but I do like Bryce Young a lot. And obviously they have the talent on both sides of the ball to get the job done. That being said, I'm really, really tempted to tell you that Georgia could be the number 2 team in the country this year. I really am. And look, man, let me make my case. Georgia goes out and they get Jamie Newman in the transfer portal, right? And I'm a Jamie Newman guy. I don't know how you feel about him, but I think he has a chance to be like a baby Cam Newton.
Oh yeah, store brand Cam Newton. Like that's what I've been calling the whole time. That's store brand Cam Newton. It's good. Yeah. It's good.
Yes.
It's good.
So look, to get Jamie, and I know that Coach Monken coming in, everyone's really excited about what he can do offensively. And obviously they're going to have a ton of young backs to work with him, guys like Zamir White, so on and so forth. But, I mean, JT Daniels coming from USC and being granted eligibility, that's a huge deal, man. And I have to believe that one of those 2 dudes is going to hit. And I have to also believe that if one of those 2 dudes hit, they give the Georgia Bulldogs a quarterback advantage over the Alabama Crimson Tide. I know everyone likes to pick Alabama because, it's the easy pick, or Florida right now because it's kind of the sexy pick. But Georgia's defense, okay, we don't even really touch on them that much. Georgia's defense could be the number 1 defense in the nation with ease next year. And now that the fact that they have Pickens with a viable quarterback option, and they still have guys on that offensive line to get the job done, and of course they have guys everywhere in that running back stable that were 4 and 5 stars. I mean, I'm tempted to tell you, man, Georgia could be number 2 in the country. What do you think? Am I off base here?
I think so, but that's because of 2 issues I have, right? George Pickens and what else? Who else is going to catch the football?
Well, okay, we don't know.
Right. Whereas with Alabama, who has been my pick to win the national championship, and now I feel so good about it because there's no Ohio State, you see Devontae Smith, you see Jalen Waddle, you see Najee Harris. You know what they have, and it's about Mac Jones basically operating at the controls a la A.J. McCarron. But guess who's behind him? The guy that was rated higher than J.T. Daniels and Jamie Newman and Carson Beck, it's Bryce Young, right? And then on that defense, what people missed about Alabama last year is they at one point had 4 true freshmen in the front 7. 4. 2 at middle linebacker. And they get Dylan Moses back, and they get to add a dude that you and I both absolutely love in Drew Sanders, who I think is going to be a day 1 player for them at outside linebacker. And then you get Patrick Surtain the second over there playing corner. If quarterback is what we're talking about, cool. I'll put Mac Jones up against those guys. I don't want to, but I will, because I know that the guys that out there at skill positions is about, can you distribute it? Matter of fact, and this is Nick Saban peak. In the college football playoff national championship game against Georgia, he sat Jalen Hurts down at half. Why? Because he said, we have these exciting and awesome skill players out on the perimeter, and we got to get a guy that can distribute them the football. Not a guy that can go win us the game, a guy that can distribute the football to them. And I think that when you have those sorts of players on the offensive side and the defensive side, you give yourself an advantage there. It's one of the reasons why we didn't see so many black quarterbacks to start the century, because you kept trying to put him out there at skill positions when you should probably put him back there at tailback, or not tailback, quarterback, and let them operate like a tailback, which is to say what, Mac Brown did with Vince Young. You let your best player, have the ball most of the time. Now, there's a part of me, there's a real part of me that wants to believe you based on the defense and the defensive prowess of Georgia, because, you got dudes, right? And Monty Rice coming out of nowhere, and then you get to add to that. My goodness, Darnell Washington, and we continue to go on about those guys. But I would let it slide, because Alabama's going to slide no further than 3, and that's how good that they are, right? So then we're talking about who would basically fill in at this number 7 spot with Penn State. Would you just slot Florida there? Would you move up a Notre Dame and Auburn? Where are you at with that?
I definitely go Florida here.
Okay.
I think I honestly I know the battle here is LSU. Some people like them really high. Some people like them a little lower. I would bet on Florida right now over LSU. And so I might even
they get to play each other now, so that's going to be awesome.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to that. And I will say that I don't think it was too long ago that Florida basically had to reschedule a game because of that hurricane, and everyone thought like, oh, well, LSU's going to get the easy dub, and Florida went out and got it. And Florida LSU games are always very heated. They're a lot of fun. Obviously, last year's game, Kyle Trask, that game down there in Baton Rouge. Trask had a good game. Kyle Pitts did some really nice things. So I'm betting on Florida to be a really good squad this year. I know that, we talk about Alabama a lot. I also want to mention they have 4 seniors and a guy at Evan Neal at offensive tackle, who I don't know if you saw that video that's going around on social media, but Evan Neal is doing split box jumps at 6'7", 360. But for me, Alabama has those kind of dudes on the offensive line, and that's why they win so many games. I think for the first time in a while, Florida may have an offensive line that you feel pretty good about. Stone Forsythe, Gene DeLance, Richard Goriage, Brett Heggie, they have experience now, and they may be able to actually provide some time, which the Gators have really struggled on the line of scrimmage in the past. So for me, that's why when I look at teams like Georgia or Alabama and I compare them to an LSU or Florida, I think I give Florida the edge here because they have experience coming back in the offensive line, a quarterback that I like, and obviously the defensive talent is always going to be there. And if all those transfers come in that they got, people forget how hard the Gators hit the transfer portal this year. If all those transfer portal guys come in and they fit in well, I really like Florida to not only sit there at 7, but maybe skyrocket up even higher.
I don't hate this because it means Oklahoma at 6 and Florida at 7, which is the game that probably should have happened last year anyway, based on how Florida played in the Orange Bowl and how Oklahoma played in the Peach Bowl. And I am with you as far as Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts and what that defense might actually be. But I got to give this one to Auburn, man. I really love Owen Pappoe. I think that Kalen Newton has every opportunity to beat Bo Nix in camp and should. He's just a better quarterback. Kevin Steele's defense versus Todd Grantham's defense. I'll take Kevin Steele. I'll take the guy that was winning in Alabama and has won at Auburn. I also think that Gus Malzahn's offense is going to get better because Chad Morris knows Malzahn and knows how to run it. He went to Malzahn to learn how to run that basketball on the grass. They know how to take advantage of those 3 route combinations that they like to run, and they're going to try some stuff and win some football games. They've also shown some moxie, right? The same game that LSU beat Florida in is the kind of game that Auburn should have lost to Alabama and didn't, right? It did not squander 2 pick sixes of Mac Jones in the Iron Bowl. I think that they have this to go. And every year we do this with Auburn. We underestimate what they're going to be able to do. It's almost like we expect them to be, or we expect Texas A&M to be what Auburn turns out to be, right? Which is why I would be just fine with Auburn at 7. But I think we would both agree that you would have them ranked ahead of a Notre Dame at number 9, though, right?
Yeah, I would bet on Auburn ahead of Notre Dame. Obviously, I think people will kind of look at Notre Dame and the name brand and maybe the returning quarterback and kind of use that as a crush take. But I'm with you. I like what Auburn's going to be able to do. Now, I would be interested to see your take. I do feel like Kevin Steele defense is always really built on that defensive line, and losing Marlon Davidson and Derek Brown, that's a big deal, man. And so I feel like that's why, for me, I like Auburn a lot, like you, but then I would also give Florida the edge over Auburn for now because I know that they have some guys coming back, whereas Auburn really has to replace some workhorses in the defensive front that means so much to that system.
Well, you lose Jonathan Grenard and Jabari Zuniga on Florida's defense at the bookend position. So I think that's a wash.
Correct.
Right? I also know that, when I'm looking at who I expect to go get me a win in crunch time, I'm not looking at Florida right now. I'm looking at Auburn. I'm looking at Auburn to be there at the end because of what they did against Oregon, because of what they did against Alabama, because of how they outplayed an A&M team. I trust them in a way that I just don't trust Florida right now. It could change, but they're going to have to beat an LSU that I think could catch 5 losses this year anyway. Okay, so let's go to number 12. Wisconsin is out there. Are we looking at A&M, Texas, or Oklahoma State to jump?
I would pick Texas A&M right now.
Okay.
I feel like Texas A&M is a squad when you look. I don't know, man. Here's the thing. I feel like everyone in college football could do an entire podcast on their feelings on Kellen Mond, right? I mean, the guy, he's an enigmatic quarterback.
Who are you, Kellen Mond? Who are you?
Do we have no idea? The guy has an identity crisis and yet to have his identity stolen. It's just crazy to me that we always question this guy. But I watch these games, right, and I see Kellen Mond hang in the pocket and make some of these tough throws, and I like his mental stability. And I really just feel like this dude is ready to take the next step. And maybe Texas could easily jump here because of some of those returners on defense, so on and so forth. But I also know, obviously, the losses offensively are a big deal. And so for me, when you look at Texas A&M, I like what they have around Kellen Mond. And I also feel like when you really look at what they're going to do, I feel like they're going to allow him to be a little bit more loose this season because I feel like the trust factor continues to grow with Kellen Mond and the Aggie fan base / coaching staff. So this one for me is a toss-up. There's any number of right or wrong answers here. But if you're asking me to pick between Texas A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma State, for me, it would be Texas A&M, and then I could go coin flip between OSU and UT.
Wow, that's interesting because I got Texas far and away ahead of A&M and Oklahoma State. It's the most talented team of the three. You have the best quarterback returning of any quarterback in the country, quite honestly, in Sam Ehlinger. You have Jordan Whittington and Jake Smith at the slot. My goodness. You have Brennan Eagles and Malcolm Epps at the outside receiver spots. You got an experienced offensive line. Defensively, you're going to Chris Ash's match quarter set, and you get Caden Stearns back if he's healthy. He's money. You get Joseph Asai at a much more natural, just defensive end, downhill. I'm going to kill everything that moves position rather than asking him to make reads in the middle. And then with Oklahoma State, I got them ahead of Texas A&M because, one, they play an easier schedule, and two, Chuba Hubbard, Tylan Wallace, they're back, man. Yep. And that Oklahoma State defense held teams to fewer points and fewer passing yards than both Texas and Oklahoma. I could see it for Oklahoma State finishing inside the top 12, maybe even making a charge up the top 10, depending on how they play against a Texas or an Oklahoma or an Iowa State. So I think we differ there because I look at Texas A&M and I say, no, show me you can beat somebody in the SEC West that matters first. Show me you can go get Alabama, Auburn, LSU, right? After that, what are we talking about? That's how I feel about ampersand U. It's a lot of smoke every year and no fire. It's a lot of smoke. Okay, so at number 15 and 18, we'll put those together. We got Michigan at 15, Minnesota at 18. Teams in between there are, again, Oklahoma State at 16, and then we're looking at North Carolina at 19, Central Florida at 21. I mean, because we don't have a Utah at 20, we don't have a Minnesota at 18, we don't have a USC at 17. So I feel like now we're going to get into teams that either we don't expect to be ranked in normal years or teams that are overlooked in the American, which has a great argument now for not just being a Power 5, but a Power 4 team.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me. Obviously, I would really closely bunch up in kind of this area, Texas A&M and Texas and Oklahoma State. But I also feel like we have to talk about North Carolina has a chance to be really, really interesting this
Absolutely,
year.
absolutely.
I mean, they have a cakewalk of a schedule this season and continuity at the quarterback position with Sam Howell. And Mac Brown has those juices flowing. So I can't wait to see what happens with the Tar Heels this year. They could easily make a very strong run in the ACC and jump all of these other teams in the Big 12 and work into like a top 10. Like, I don't know, man. I'd like to see your take on North Carolina, but I can't wait to see what they can put together this year. Again, they have a chance to make something happen and shake and eventually climb way up in the rankings.
I have bought all the North Carolina stock I can, and I bought it after they lost by 1 point, a failed 2-point conversion to Clemson last year with a true freshman quarterback and new coordinators in Phil Longo and Jay Bateman. And then you combine that with Jay Bateman was the defensive coordinator for Army when they took Oklahoma into 2 overtimes at OU with Kyler Murray at quarterback, all right? That's 1 and 2. Then you add to that what they were able to do in the 2020 recruiting class, right? In securing one of the top defensive linemen in the country. Now add to that, they were able to reclassify the number 1 corner in the 2021 class so that he could play corner at UNC this year, Tony Grimes, who's going to play for probably the best North Carolina football player of all time, Dre Bly, at corner. I know that there's some folks out there that believe Julius Peppers is getting a raw deal here. I'm going, no, just take a look at being like one of the only redshirt freshmen ever to be consensus All-American, but that's neither here nor there. I could see North Carolina jumping to that 15 spot, and really, I got them ranked ahead of Texas A&M. I think they're that good. I really do, and I got Oklahoma State just behind them on the basis of schedule and on the basis of I trust Sam Howell 3 times as much as I trust Spencer Sanders. Okay, after what Sam Howell was able to do last year and what Spencer Sanders couldn't do, because you're talking about the difference between a guy that can go out there and get you a bucket, can go win you a football game, and Sam Howell, and a guy in Spencer Sanders that you're still just trusting not to fumble it away or throw a pick to get you out of the game. So that's where I'm at with them. Now, where I think we're going to see lots of American teams start to pop up is toward the end here when we start to talk about 20 to 25, because Utah, Iowa, they're out. That means that Vatech, Cincy, Central Florida are already there. And then when you get Tennessee, was basically the number 26 team in the country according to the coaches poll, then you got to talk about Kentucky. You got to talk about Memphis. You got to talk about Baylor, Louisville. Like Louisville, I think needs to get some love there. Appalachian State needs to get some love there. Like the belt is going to be heard this year. The belt's going to snap over some butts. I'm trying to tell you, like I was going through the coaches voters, right? There's 65 of them, and basically half these guys don't have programs to coach in 2020. But I'm looking, the Chanticleers, Coastal Carolina might have a shot here coming out of the belt. We got Butch Davis's FIU, might have a shot here. We got Willie Taggart's Florida Atlantic, might have a shot here. I got video today of North Texas going through drills. Like SMU is like, oh yeah, you forgot about us? I feel like we're going to be right there. Shane Buechele is like, hey, I'm still here. We still got dudes. We're still ready to do this. Like, I feel like we could end up with more American teams in the top 25 than any other conference not named the SEC, but they would all be from about 12 to 25. What do you think?
Dude, this is where it's fascinating. And maybe I'm doing this exercise a little bit wrong because I'm providing like my preseason rankings.
Right.
Of course, I'm thinking like some of these teams are going to jump like North Carolina or Texas or Oklahoma State. But I mean, like if I'm providing some preseason rankings right now, I'm with you on Louisville. They definitely need to be shown a little bit more love right now, especially in the ACC. Miami may be a little bit sneaky. Who knows what De'Aaron King can do this year? But this is my take. SMU has a real chance to make some noise. Central Florida, man, Mackenzie Milton is coming back, I think. And that was a dude.
Dylan Gabriel's still there, though. Why are we trying to get Dylan Gabriel up out of the paint? That's what I'm trying to figure out. What's wrong with Dylan Gabriel?
Bro, real, though. I mean, for real. Like, it's so wild what the Knights are able to do. Like, we always just talk about them. We have no idea what's going to happen year in and year out. But, I mean, there's so many different squads. I like UCF. I like Louisville. Maybe Miami makes some noise. SMU, the offensive weapons that are coming back are for real. And then they have a ton of, like, juniors on the offensive line. And they brought in a JUCO guard that I think really completes that front to give Bouchel some time. SMU is going to be able to make some noise this year. Okay. And again, man, like Iowa State's up there in the top 25 in this original ranking. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I'm going to go back to TCU, man. TCU has a real shot to get into these rankings because of the offensive firepower. And Jerry Kill, what does he do this year as the quote-unquote head coach of the offense? So those are some of the squads that I'm keeping an eye on in this range, and it's going to be fascinating to see what happens because you lost some really fun squads here, but there are still a ton of candidates to replace them.